Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day it is. Welcome to the Victory Roll Hot Take Hangout.
We're back.
We are back. I am the one and only storyteller, Alex Braddock, and joining me as always,
I am Dylan Gilbert, the Mark, the cameraman. Let's just get into
the
it,
legend.
Yeah, I will say
Mark
legend.
Freaking Sterling. Today on the Hot Take Hangout, we were talking about none other than indie style of wrestling. We, over here at Victory Roll, are sure-fine indie marks.
Cover my RSP logo.
We'll talk about
We're not
later.
indie marks.
We're not indie marks, but we're not talking about what classifies an independent versus what classifies a not independent. What we were talking about is styles of wrestling. You have spoken clearly on the fact, so why don't you introduce it to the people?
So I can tell you, just at being at any professional wrestling show, one name keeps coming to my mind. I have to hear it time and time again, and I like his content, but the veteran Jack Vaughn. The video series of like professional wrestling versus independent wrestling and how like certain things are done. I think the videos are hilarious, but I also think there's an actual conversation to be had about the independent style of wrestling, and I think this is the place to kind of get into that. So I can tell you from fan perspective, I prefer one. I appreciate both, but I tend to really like the independent style of wrestling because to me it's a little more wild card, a little bit. You don't have a total peg on like this is going to be. Oh yeah, we got 5 minutes. Cena is going to come in, shoulder tackle. They throw the lazy right, spin out power bomb, whop-a-doo. Here we go. Like the true indie style can kind of be a little more chaotic, but I don't know. What say you?
I mean, it's a lot less, if I may use the word, scripted. It is a lot less predictable. Is the exact phrase that you need to pull. The fight between whether you know the lazy right is coming or if that lazy right is going to get turned into a Canadian destroyer over and over and over again. ...
Dive.
You said off air what I can classify as the tribalism. In a sense, it does add to the tribalism, but we sit there and we fanboy over AEW versus WWE. We've had people say to us, Orton takes one pile driver and is out for 3 months, versus in the first match of AEW Dynamite, someone takes 4 pile drivers and stands up like nothing happened.
And I think there's legitimate beef to that. Like, I get it. But at the same time, I don't know. I think I saw one of these Facebook postings because, like they all make the round in every group. And the one I saw was Jake the Snake Roberts, the last person to properly know how to do a DDT. Was he just the only person that ever got it right? What happened? And so, I mean, I think the way I see this, because I always try to put some little logic behind it in my brain, fighting evolves, right? You look at UFC 1 versus UFC 300. Fights look totally different. And what should be a knockout shot might not be a knockout shot because guys learn how to block, guys learn how to take things, learn how to, we're just comparing this to combat. It's combat.
Yeah.
It's it's more of a stylized combat, but it's combat.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. We'll put a pin on the Jake the Snake thing. But no, I agree. It is an evolving combat style. I mean, like you said, you look at UFC 1 versus UFC whatever the crap we're on right now. But you also look at old school wrestling with Hulk Hogan versus nowadays with Ricochet or Orton or Kevin Owens. You have guys that are way tougher. And Hulk Hogan's tough, but you had the matches where it was 3 right hands, a body slam, leg drop, go home.
Right.
Versus nowadays, it's not that simple. Everyone knows that if you take 3 right hands, a body slam, and a leg drop, you can kick out. Because not that wrestling has been buried, but in a sense, you sit there and you look at independent wrestling and you go, all right, well, this guy clearly just took 4 pile drivers.
Right.
So why can't the heavyweight champion of this other bigger company not kick out of a simple body slam or whatever. I completely agree with the sentiment of it is an evolving sport. It is an evolving combat issue. But then again, that leads to some false finishes. Predictability can lead to breaking of expectations.
Right. Which, like we talk about false finishes, they can be my favorite and my least favorite thing about a match. I mean, if you've got a moment where it's like very obvious, like this should be it, and the guy kicks out, like, man, it can pop you up off the couch. Like it's the stuff that like I love about wrestling when you do catch me off guard. But if we just keep kicking out of everything,
I agree.
And it's just kick out after kick out after kick out. And not just like in like the main event of the Tokyo Dome, but like on SmackDown on a Friday night, if you've got 10 false finishes in a match.
Yes.
But some independent matches, 4 or 5 false finishes, people start getting on their feet.
Yeah.
That's like false finish is one of those things, man. Like it's such a delicate balance.
I definitely have a mixed argument about this. Not necessarily falsies. They are definitely hope spots, but false finishes, they can make or break a match. First off, we are aware of that. If you have too many of them, then you almost expect the guy to kick out at that point, which in turn could be turned into its own expectation. You almost expect the guy to kick out at 2 and he doesn't. Oh crap. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Can't tell you how many times we've watched matches where that's turned into the situation of he's kicked out at 2 for everything, and then the smaller move is the one that's going to keep him down. That's kind of weird. But it also turns into a death-defying situation of this guy's taken 4 finishes and kicked out of all of them. So how does he need to die in order for it to – and it creates a problem because now you're just escalating. Right. If you're in a main event of a pay-per-view, that may not be a problem. But if you're sitting in a local gym and you have 6 kickouts, what are you going to do? What are you going to turn it into? What death-defying move do you have to do in a high school gym in front of 30 people in order to get something good going? So there's a back and forth to it all. But kicking out at 2 will be a situation. What about kicking out at 1?
Okay, so I know fighting spirit is a real thing. We all know fighting spirit is a real thing. But I think that is one of those things that's the seasoning that needs to stay all the way in the back. And every now and again, like the dish needs a little extra kick. You pop in that kick out at 1.
Yeah.
And like, look, if you go for the pin way too early in a match, somebody kicks out at 1, that's fine. But when you get the kick out at 1, like you're 20 something minutes in a match, guy hits a signature move, maybe a Blue Thunder Bomb, whatever. You get the hook, 1, and that arm comes up. Wrestling fans, we fall into that. Like, I think we all know the cadence of the 1, 2, 3. Just like, okay, well, he's pinned. That's 1, 2, and if something breaks that cadence and it's a kick early, like it will, it's jarring. It wakes you up.
Yeah.
But don't kick out at 1 for just anything. Like it's got to be a moment.
No, very much so. I stand with the fact that you. At the very beginning of the match, you haven't been worked down as hard, you can kick out at 1. If it's a simple freaking shoulder tackle or whatever and you get pinned, of course you're going to kick out at 1. You're not worked down. 20 minutes into the match, of course you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be grinding and grinding. So you're going to not use any energy and recover as much as you can while you're down on that mat before you kick out at 2. Or sometimes you're just knocked out cold and you don't wake up until 2.9. And you realize right before the hand goes down that you need to kick out.
Yeah, you get lost in the lights, don't realize what's happening. You hear 2 and you go, oh, no.
Yes, very much so. But there is what adds to the kick out at 1 is the fact that, he's been hurt by this move, hurt by this move, hurt by this move, and he's just barely kicked out at 2 during all 3 of those moves. All right, I'm going to kill him. And you go to kill him with something, and that hand lands at 1, and then the big kick out. Like, okay, he's not dead. We thought he was dead, but he's not even a little bit dead. Right. No. He's coming back. Like, he's still around, homie.
It's that shot of adrenaline when done right.
Very much so. And it can completely light a crowd, or it can completely bury the guy that he just kicked out of.
Man, there's so many of these things. It's such a tightrope line.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you've made the right call until it's happened.
Right. No, very much so.
it's a dance, man. Like if you get that crowd to react, sometimes kicking out at one pops the crowd hard. Sometimes it's just like, well, why did he kick out at one? He just took everything.
Right.
And you don't know how that reaction is going to be until you attempt it.
Until you do it. Fine example of kicking out at one, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. Will Ospreay hits him with the one-winged angel.
Yes.
Which no one kicks out of the one-winged angel. There's only been 2 men in history to ever kick out of it, and that man is Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. And not only does Will Ospreay hit the one-winged angel, but Kenny Omega kicks out at one, completely burying his own finish. We'll talk about that later. But
that's another pin right there.
Yeah, it's another pin in the notes. But it adds to the fire because he immediately comes back and fights back, and it literally takes a screwdriver to the head, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
In order for Ospreay to take it and win it. So it does add the emphasis to everything that's going on. But we're talking about finishes, so I'll pull out the pin again. We sit there and we talk about how one person can do a pile driver and nearly kill a man for 3 months versus someone who does a pile driver first match of the night and has to do 6 of them to put a man away.
Right.
You said it best. Did Jake the Snake just know how to perfect the DDT, or is wrestling evolved and the DDT means nothing anymore? I counter that with, look at Claudio Castagnoli or The Rock doing the sharpshooter versus Bret Hart doing the sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Is it an expertise or is wrestling evolved? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, like fighting styles evolve, but if you take a punch from like some guy off the street or Mike Tyson in his prime, it's the same mechanics.
Right.
One of those people has much more power, much more technique, much more precision. I mean, like you said, Bret Hart locks the sharpshooter on. It looks like it's about to snap your leg in half. And then, Rock puts one on.
Right.
And like, it's very obvious, like, okay, this is just there for the moment of the fight of like, claw for the ropes, get the heat.
Right.
But it doesn't look like, granted, I wouldn't want The Rock to put me in a sharpshooter, but still, it looks like, to me, sitting on the couch, like when John Cena does the STF. He doesn't, like some guys, they're doing the S grip, they're cinched in and they're pulling, and it looks like there is no space for breath anywhere near it. And then you got Cena, whose arm just kind of sits across here.
Yeah.
Because that's, people do things differently. That's not his area of expertise. He's not a submission specialist.
Right.
He hits the AA and goes home.
Goes home. Just note to anybody that wants to face John Cena in the near future, don't throw the lazy right.
If he hits you with 2 shoulder tackles, just don't throw the punch. Problem solved.
Besides the point. I'll take it from an ego standpoint of this argument. I can do it like nobody else can. So I will say, sometimes people kick out of my single leg kick. And then you turn around and watch WWE, and Drew McIntyre will hit a Claymore, which is essentially what my move is.
Yeah.
And that's a finish. That is his move. No one kicks out of it. Correction. Some people have, but a lot of people don't.
Most people don't.
Most people don't, especially after 2 or 3. But I will never be on. I will correct myself. As of right now, that kick is not on the standard of a Drew McIntyre coming in with that kick.
Right.
So his ego almost says, I do it like nobody else does. And therefore, he can freaking kick a head off. I can kick a head off, but I don't have the technique master. It is very much a whoever does it as a finish versus does it as a standard move. It is one of those things of maybe I just do it better than they do.
Right.
And that's an argument you can pull.
And so, I mean, like maybe your super kick is not as good as Shawn Michaels in its prime. Like, and so like I think every wrestler on the independent scene has a super kick. Some of them not great. Some of them are freaking beautiful.
Yep.
But I mean, it becomes another move. And especially like you look at a lot of independents now, you point out any wrestler and I could probably tell you who his influence is. just because you
Yep.
emulate, kind of like when, if you like baseball, you've got your guys you emulate. Any sport like that, you're going to have it, and they're going to show up in your style.
Right.
I think the independents, you do see a lot more of like guys using like, I like this guy's finisher, but it's not my finisher.
Right.
So that single leg kick that looks a lot like a claymore finds its way into your arsenal. The beheader looks a lot like a move Will Ospreay does. When Ospreay does it, nobody kicks out. They're similar.
Nobody's kicked out of my move.
But it's just the thing. The independent style, like I think you do see a lot of guys like using. It's kind of like music, man. You're trying to find like the thing that makes like your voice. Yeah. So you start off by playing other people's songs, and then you start kind of realizing like, hey, man, I'm good at this, and you start making your own. You start creating your own moves. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think just over time, that indie-rific style is just caught on.
Indie-rific. Put it on a t-shirt. Quote it.
It's just caught on, man. Like, and I tell you, I love the indie style. Like,
yes,
some moves have less impact. Some moves have way more impact.
And sometimes the indie style pisses me off. So that's just there. That is opinion, and you are entitled to your opinion. Either way,
you're allowed to be wrong. It's fine.
Welcome to the Hot Take Hangout, where you're allowed to be wrong.
I'll allow it.
Anyway, takeaways for the episode. Be indie-rific. Don't hate on people that are doing finishes for moves and basic stuff. What are your takeaways?
I mean, my takeaways are, like, things evolve, things change. You look at Bruno in the Garden versus, like, Ospreay Omega in the Dome. It's the same concept, but it is two wildly different, like, styles. I mean, things change.
Very much so. This has been the Hot Take Hangout, where we're talking about indie-rific moves and being the indie style. If you like what you see, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We are making more content day by day, and we'll be posting over the next couple of weeks. Make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to stay focused. This has been the Victory Roll Wrestling YouTube. Deuces. Fucking stupid.